Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track, right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year from Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner! Wow.
Episode 51. Welcome to the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lynn, and I'm joined by my co-host, former Major League Baseball pitcher, Bill Pulsifer. We have Chris behind the scenes. And before we get into a lot that has gone on in the last week or so in Mets land and also MLB land, I want to let you know that you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify and Google Chrome, Apple, of course, and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube at Say Hello Media. Now that we have that out of the way, Bill, we took last week off. Let's just call it a mini vacation, if you will. And we're back. So how have you been, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. You know, weather's starting to change a little bit up here. I'm starting to notice some green in the grass out front and in the backyard, which is nice. You know, it's not quite spring yet, but at least we're getting up in the 50-degree range. I'm sure you're having some warmer weather down there in Florida, but hanging in there for the most part.
Good to hear. You know, we said all along, once spring training started, spring is in the air, and now finally New York, 50 degrees. I'll take that every March, middle of March.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
We got a jam-packed episode for everybody. Let's just run through the quote-unquote agenda for today. We're going to discuss to our listeners and everybody our overall thoughts on spring training, Bill and I, as we're about, what would you say, Bill, about halfway through or maybe a little more?
Maybe a little past halfway through, It's getting close now.
Yeah, about 2 weeks left. Unfortunately, we're going to have to address some big injuries on the Mets front, Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil. We're also going to talk about Gerrit Cole, pitcher for the Yankees, one of the best in baseball. Tommy John, we're going to address that. The second base craziness that is going on for that spot, we're going to talk about. And also a little talk about Edwin Diaz, who has made, I believe, 3 appearances in the Grapefruit League. And there's some signs of, maybe we should worry, maybe we should not. We'll talk about that. Of course, we have the mailbag and quick pitches. So, I will take a breath. And, of course, 51 means that we go through 51. The number 51, who has worn them in Mets history. Not many names on this list, but there's some good names, actually, in my opinion. I'll start.
All right. I thought it was interesting that you didn't see anyone wear that number into the 90s.
Yeah,
the 1990s. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So you hit it on the head right there. Mike Maddox, he was the first one, 93, 94, the brother of Hall of Famer Greg Maddox, who pitched for the Mets, like I just said, 93, 94. But I think if you're a big baseball fan, Bill, you attest to this. He's most known as one of the better pitching coaches.
Yeah. Long time pitching coach, great pitching coach. A group of my friends, former players, they talk so highly of him that you had him with the Cubs or with the Brewers when they played with the Brewers. Glendon played there, and then a couple other guys, Will Oman and Wayne Franklin. So they always speak very, very highly of him as a pitching coach.
Yeah, he has to be. I mean, he's been around for, I want to say, a decade plus. At least.
Probably 20 years now, at least.
Yeah, that's probably right. The next one is Mel Rojas. Yeah, and he's not, in Met lore, not the best to think back to. He wore number 51 in 97 and 98, and he was awful. We'll just say it how it is. He was
a good closer coming over from the Expos. He had a good little career going, and things didn't work out with the Mets. But a short-time former teammate of mine.
Okay. Well, the reason that I like Mel Rojas on this list, because I remember him pitching and I wasn't a fan, but the trade that brought Mel Rojas, listen to these names, Bill, okay? August 8th, 1997, he was traded by the Cubs with Brian McRae and Turk Wendell to the Mets for a player to be named later, and Lance Johnson. And the Mets also sent Mark Clark and Manny Alexander to the Cubs to complete the trade. So those are a lot of names, right, Bill?
That's funny. Yeah, Mark Clark is an interesting name that has that tie to me because in 1996, when I was coming back after missing the end of 95 with my sprained ligament, and I was told by the doctors that everything's fine, you're fine, don't worry about it, and went into spring training and was pitching a night game against the Expos, and that's when I felt my elbow go completely, and I went up the next day. They told me there's too much inflammation, we can't tell what's going on. And what do you know? Within 2 days, Mark Clark was traded from the Indians to the Mets and became a starter. And then they told me, "Oh yeah, you've got a blown out UCL. You need Tommy John." So, needless to say, the Mets doctors did not do my surgery because they obviously lied to me. And as we go and talk about Cole later on, he didn't have too much inflammation in his elbow to be told what was going on in there. So that's my tie to Mark Clark, other than being a good old big old country boy, a good dude.
Yeah, I remember Mark Clark. He actually, I forget what year, hit a home run. You know, he was a big dude, so he had
Yeah, big
power.
strong fella.
Yeah.
Reminded me of a right-handed pitching version of Tomey. They resembled each other. Just
Oh,
big,
who?
big cut. Jim Tomey.
Oh, okay, Jim Tomey.
Kind of the
Okay.
same kind of facial features and just a big, strong country boy. They kind of always reminded me of each other.
Yeah, definitely big, strong country boys. Next up on the list, Rick White wasn't a Met for long, but he became a Met in 2000. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Of course, the Mets went to the World Series in 2000, but he was traded back then they were the Devil Rays. He was traded with Bubba Trammell to the Mets for Jason Tyner and Paul Wilson.
Wow.
Yeah.
Two former first round picks and one number 1 overall pick.
Yep. Tyner and Wilson. Absolutely.
Yep.
Rick White was okay for the Mets, so all good is there. And the last one I have is Paul Sewald, who pitched for the Mets from 17 to 2020, WAR number 51. He was not good for the Mets. 125 games, he had a 5.50 ERA. He went to Seattle.
He's been better as not a Met.
Right. He went to Seattle, did well. Went to Arizona, became their closer, did well. And he just got picked up by the Indians, the Guardians, for this year. So he's had success since he was not so good for the Mets. That's all I got on the list.
Yeah, that's it. It was a short list. We covered it.
So, Bill, we got to talk about spring training. That opening day basically is 2 weeks away. So we're more than halfway through. I correct myself. There's a lot that has gone on, but I'm seeing a trend here, and it's not fun. Tell me if you agree or not. It's almost like get the hell out of spring training healthy at this point, with all the injuries for both New York teams, for other teams. Everybody's working on different things, but guys are dropping like flies. So what's your impression of, just as we go deeper later, or very quickly actually, to Alvarez and McNeil? What's your impression so far of spring training at Clover Park and down the East Coast?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of inconsistency, obviously, you're seeing in Mets land. The record doesn't necessarily bode well, but again, the record isn't the most important thing in spring training, because the record becomes more important at the latter, the last week or so, when you kind of pay attention to how the team is doing. Injuries has obviously been a big bug. The hamate bone with Alvarez, that's something that you really didn't hear. You heard that a lot in the early and mid 90s into the late 90s, guys breaking hamate bones, and then it kind of went away. And then I remember, I guess it was Trout last year or the year before, it kind of came up again. So it sucks. It's a little tiny little bone at the end of the outside of your hand that the guys break swinging. It's usually the guys that have their hand down to below the end of the bat. They kind of hold it on the knob. Those are the guys that used to be doing it all the time. But it's a shame for Alvarez. The same hand he hurt last year. And then obviously the word of the spring, it seems to be oblique, is kind of the word of the spring. It makes you just wonder what's going on with the training methods and that, when you see that these guys are pulling oblique after oblique after oblique. But I guess it is. They do spring training for a reason, so you can find out what you got, and the Mets are and a lot of other teams are going to find out what they got.
Yeah, I don't look at the record at all. I couldn't even tell you what the record is right now. Like you said, it's not important. Maybe, with the last week to go or so when the regulars start,
Playing
turning
every
it
day,
up.
yeah, playing the whole game.
Actually, Thursday was a big day. Semi good news, semi bad news. We'll talk about Alvarez, but just in one day, on Thursday, uh, we got news on Sean Manaea. You spoke about the oblique; he was shut down.
Right.
They got an imaging of that oblique, and it's all clear. He feels no pain, and now he starts his spring training again.
Right.
So that's good news. He could be
Yeah.
back in a month.
Right.
Bad news: Jeff McNeil is now shut down for 4 weeks at least with a low-grade oblique, which he doesn't even know how that happened. He said he felt fine. He went home. He felt pain. They checked it out, and it showed a minor low-grade oblique, which he like. What in the world is going on? Like you said with the obliques.
Baseball is such a rotational sport in everything. Whether you're throwing, whether you're hitting, it's just such a you're moving left to right, right to left, depending on which hand you're swinging with or throwing with. And part of me wonders how much of it has to do with possible dehydration during the day, being out there where you don't feel like you're losing as much, water weight as you are, and maybe you're not hydrating enough. And I think that's when those type of injuries kind of pop up a little bit. But we know that Aaron Judge has dealt with oblique injuries over the years, and Stanton, it's usually the bigger dudes that are, trying to put the ball over the fence. But hey, and you think about McNeil throwing right-handed but swinging left-handed, so the rotational, it's a shame. It's a shame and I'm sure he's bummed out, like all the Mets fans are bummed out because everybody wants to see Jeff bounce back and have a good year, but he's going to be stagnated at the start.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He was hitting the ball well. He was. Yeah. But he won't be there for opening day, and hopefully it gets resolved in that 3 to 4 weeks. However, the quote by manager Carlos Mendoza, and you don't hear him have these kind of ominous quotes, but he said this could be tricky, which is not Carlos Mendoza like.
Well, is it tricky because McNeil's not going to play there, or they're not 100% certain who's going to be the second baseman?
Well, we're going to get into who is going to be the second baseman, but I think he meant the oblique, the actual injury.
Yeah.
And that we'll just continue on the day of Thursday. So now, good news: Brandon Nimmo, who was shut down for right knee soreness, and he got a shot in that knee. He came back on Wednesday as the DH and had a single in his first at bat, and he's going to ramp up now to hope that he'll be on the opening day squad. So you're noticing a trend here. It's all good news, bad news for injuries, which is not what you want, but it's
maybe Nimmo does get a little bit of time at DH. They've got enough guys to cover defensively out there for until he gets completely healed from the surgery, and then I'm wondering if and I don't know for a fact if the shot is in the same knee as the foot that he had the surgery on, because that would make kind of sense if you're running around on a bad arch in your foot that your knee starts to bother you. But
that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Me neither.
It was a gel injection for the knee.
Yeah. Probably not a lot of cartilage in that knee anymore, and it's probably a lot of bone on bone rubbing and very uncomfortable.
Right, and he was dealing with plantar fasciitis, and then the knee thing came out of nowhere. We all know it's all connected, so that's a good point for you.
It could be either, really, if it's not even the same leg. If you're walking funny on one foot, something's gonna, they say, what do they say? The knee bone's connected to and all that. You know how that goes.
Yeah. A couple of good things too. AJ Minter, who had hip surgery on the last August, he was shut down by the Braves, signed by the Mets. He made his first appearance on Wednesday. 1, 2, 3 look good.
Yeah.
Probably just maybe 2 more, and with everything going well, that's very good news because Stanek has pitched in a lot of games, and he looks sharp. So, you got your Minter and your Stanek to Diaz, right?
Yes.
Also good news, Nunez, who hasn't pitched in a game yet as of right now, did a 2-inning live BP on Thursday, and he's scheduled to make his debut in the Grapefruit League on Monday. It could give him a real chance if he pitches well or mostly healthy to make the opening day roster. He was
Yeah,
great last year.
yeah,
That's a
he was
big.
great last year, and I looked. It looks like Budo has kind of bounced back a little bit from his rough ending to the year. So if they can get those guys all going, the bullpen just continues to get deeper and deeper.
Yeah, and then finishing off, speaking of the bullpen, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but there's a little bit of an issue with Edwin Diaz, his velocity. He doesn't look so sharp, but we'll talk about that later. Um, I wanted to talk about specifically, real quick, Francisco Alvarez. You talked about the hamate bone. Uh, that's a tricky one, no pun intended, to Mendoza to come back from. It's his catching hand, but they say that that bone is like even when healed, it's you're not the same right off the bat. No pun
I know
intended.
a lot of times they remove the little broken piece. They just take it out. You know,
Yeah,
it sucks that he keeps getting hand injuries because it's different for an outfielder or something that's not taking the pounding on the hands like the catcher is. So it's kind of sucks that his glove hand is taking that beating
yeah,
because obviously catching 90, 95 plus and with the wicked movement that the guys have, that hand's just there's a reason why catchers usually don't end up being batting champions very, very often, because their hands are usually beat up by come the end of the year. So that's definitely a bummer for him to take another knock on the hand.
yeah. He's supposed to be out 6 to 8 weeks. That puts him in end of May. I just feel bad for the dude because he worked so hard,
Yeah.
and while he hasn't had a breakout year offensively, pitchers love throwing to him. He calls a good game. And, here we are, the starting catcher, Bill, for the Mets, for at least the first month and a half, is Luis Torrens. And he's a very good backup. But as an everyday catcher, I don't know, So obviously, last year, Alvarez had the thumb injury, and they had Nito, I believe, and Omar Narvaez. But Torres as a backup, great. He's got a lot of pressure on him now to be the everyday.
Yeah, well, the good thing he's got going for him is he did have some success last year when he was out there. So hopefully he's feeling confident and wants to take the opportunity to do as much as he possibly can to help the ball club. I think it's another guy that the guys will enjoy throwing to, and we know that he throws the ball well to the bases.
Yes, he does.
Obviously, we were expecting and hoping for Alvarez to have his breakout offensive season. It's going to be put on hold a little bit. So it's kind of like do you know what you're really missing with Alvarez offensively? It's more projection than it is really knowing what you're getting. So at the very least, you know that he's a solid a solid backstop and somebody that's not going to hurt you defensively, where he's a offense first
Right.
catcher and not a defense first catcher. So I think that it's just going to be more on the Lindors, more on the Alonsos, more on the Sotos, more on the Winkers to kind of pick up the slack a little bit on the offensive side, because you're not going to miss anything defensively with Torrens back there.
No, absolutely not. He is a great thrower behind the plate. He goes behind the base runners, throwing the first, throwing the third. So you don't lose much there. But when you have Alvarez, he lengthens the lineup. If
Yep,
he's
and his energy too. Alvarez brings that energy and a little bit of I'm going to say craziness, but it's not crazy. Just his exuberance in the way that he goes about the game. I
swag.
think that it kind of is infectious with the rest of the team.
So while we're on the injury talking front, let's just go into McNeil, and we touched upon it, and now the second base conundrum that the Mets have.
Yeah,
McNeil's going to miss at least the first month, right? And right before McNeil got hurt, it was two players, really, Acuna and Beatty, for last spot to be the backup infielder,
right,
if you will.
right.
Now that McNeil's out, you have two spots, and you have McNeil. I'm sorry, you have Beatty, Acuna, this Donovan Walden, I believe, or I forget his last name. Excuse me. And it could very well be that Acuna and Beatty break camp with.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, you know what? I mean, why not go with it? Why not go with the guys in the organization? Your organizational guys early and get them a shot. I have a hard time seeing Beatty as a second baseman because he's such a big guy. He's such a big lumbering dude. Second base is more of a scat position. Although you think about Robinson Cano, I mean he was a big old dude playing second base too. But Beatty is doing his normal thing in spring training where he's hitting the ball all over the place, which obviously makes everybody salivate a little bit and say, all right, maybe he's got it. Maybe he's getting it. Um, you're obviously looking to replace some offense with Alvarez going down. So, I mean, it's a project. I think Acuna would obviously probably be the better fit middle infielder wise.
Yeah.
But the way Beatty's swinging the bat right now, the baseball is all about playing the hot hand. So maybe he's the hot hand right now, and maybe you suffer a little bit on the defensive end and hope that his bat stays hot once they come up north and get in the colder weather.
My take on it is right now probably both are going to break camp.
Yeah.
With Mets, and I would think right now they would platoon against righty-lefty, Beatty versus the righties,
Yeah.
being a handed hitter. But we saw last year, Bill, Acuna, when Lindor's back went out at the end of the year, Acuna was great.
Yeah.
So he handled pressure situations very well.
And played in big, like you said, pressure situations, big games, like must-win games.
Yeah.
So that's something that bodes well for him coming into the season, is his comfortability level should be there. Where he came in, he was already doing the Cespedes outfits and all that, and his little deal as soon as he came in, and he was successful. So that bodes well for him. Obviously, Beatty is going to have to exercise some of the demons, getting back out there again.
Yeah, and what bodes well for Acuna as well, it's two things. What for him, he can play third base like he did at the end of last year to spell maybe in the later innings Vientos for defense, right?
Yeah.
Also, he can back up in a pinch. Lindor, God forbid, gets hurt. There's no other shortstop.
I think I think that has to give him an edge of making the club at this point, because there's just not another guy. And while we know Francisco plays every single game, he did have a back injury last year. Back injuries don't tend to just go away.
Right.
So, and he's a little bit, another 6 months older. So obviously we're banking big on Francisco to have a big year and stay healthy. But you're going to have somebody spell him every once in a while.
Right. And also he can come off the bench as a pitch runner. He's fast.
Yeah.
So that bodes well for Acuna. What doesn't bode well, in my opinion, is that I could see, and this is what I don't want David Stearns doing. They could say, oh, we want Acuna getting at bats, so that means every day. He's not going to make the team. I don't think it's that complicated. Just platoon the two guys, and
I think you're right. Platoon him. He's not going to get his everyday at bats, and you don't know how long the situation is going to be. Obviously, with McNeil trying to come back from injury, so early on in the season, I think maybe the platoon thing might work. And then when McNeil does get healthy and he's ready to play, you those guys battled it out, and you see who's the winner.
And also, so that's
unfortunately for Beatty, he's back in that situation again.
Yeah. Now, here's my take on Beatty. He played his first game on Thursday at second base. He did not look good. He had an error. He threw the ball up the line, almost got Pete killed. He's not sharp there, and that's we know that. He's not a second baseman. He's learning the position.
Yeah.
He's a third baseman, and like you said, he's tall. He's got a great arm. That's why he was at third. I see him more as an outfielder, but here we are. They're trying to make him a second baseman.
Yeah.
That's what spring training is for, but we're close to opening day.
I didn't realize until I did a little bit of research. He did go back down to AAA and play some games. I think it said 27 games at second base last year in AAA when he did go back down, which I wasn't aware of.
Right.
But at least he has a little bit of experience. But man, he doesn't, like, when you look up prototypical second baseman, you see Acuna a lot more than you see Beatty if they were going to put a photo up of what a second baseman, quote unquote, looks like.
And also Beatty, and most Met fans know this. He's been getting multiple shots at the big league level.
Yeah.
And he's one of those AAA players right now where he
needs another city.
Right. And right now he's staring down a second base job with the Mets. So here we are again, like you said. He has to produce at the big league level. He's been given a lot of chances. We know he can hit, but all that matters is at the major league level. Yeah. So again, he's having a good spring, like he always does.
Yeah,
but
I know.
What are we going to get?
You know what I remember last year at the beginning of the year when he actually came out well and was hitting well, numbers-wise. And I'm not a big analytics type guy, but I do remember somebody talking about exit velocity on his on his hit batted balls, was on his batted balls. And they were saying how low it was, and then it didn't bode well for him long term. And I'm like, whatever, I don't care. I remember, Tony Gwynn didn't hit the ball over 80 miles an hour, but I guess obviously Beatty's no Tony Gwynn, and as it turns out, he did end up kind of nosediving a little bit, and we know how Vientos then took the bull by the horns and became the third baseman.
It's going to be very interesting the last 2 weeks now with Neil out for sure how this plays out. So, hopefully they get confidence, they get the reps, and the Mets are not compromised at second base because, they have some other injuries they got to take care of. And second base, obviously, a big position.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Let's talk a little bit before we get into Edwin Diaz. Let's talk about Gerrit Cole. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we're going to talk about Cole, he's an ace. He's one of the best pitchers in the last decade. He is out for the year with Tommy John surgery. If you remember everybody last year, he didn't start the year. He was on the IL. His elbow was bothering him, but he pitched 99 innings during the regular season. But this year, he didn't make it out of spring training. And two different opinions by doctors, Tommy John surgery, out for the year. Yankees have also lost Luis Hill, who is the reigning AL Rookie of the Year. So they lost two pitchers.
Is Hill an oblique or a lat? He's a lat, right?
It's a high strain lat, and he's out at least 3 months. So that's two big pitchers right there.
Yeah.
So before I want your take on this, Bill, because I know you have a lot to say on this. Like Gerrit Cole, call me crazy. Gerrit Cole, I should say, was on borrowed time because the guy never had Tommy John surgery. He was throwing 100 miles an hour for years, right?
He didn't have it in 2015.
Well, this is where I'm going. I don't believe this is his second one.
Okay.
I don't. But from 2015 through last year, 2024, he led Major League Baseball with 1,698 innings, plus 122 innings in the playoffs. And I just feel like he was on borrowed time. He was a workhorse, and here we are. So that's a big blow for the Yankees and for baseball. I want to see healthy pitchers.
Well, obviously, like what you just said, anytime the big time guys are out, it's worse. Baseball is worse when a guy like Cole is out or DeGrom is out, and the top guys, because there's nothing quite like the big horse starting pitcher. It's always kind of been that way, and I still believe it is. Everybody likes to see the guy, the dominant pitcher. I know that they made this new rule last year, and now I think that MLB should relook at it as one of your dominant pitchers has gone down 2 years in a row with this stupid rule that they have in spring training, that if you throw a certain amount of pitches and don't get out of an inning, you can be removed and then come back and start the next inning. Well, they've done it twice with Cole, and both times it's happened, it's because he didn't have it that day, maybe because his arm was bothering him. And as athletes, we don't have a tendency to open up our mouths and say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit here physically, and we want to prove that we're going to go back out there and get it done. Sometimes the player needs protection from himself, and there's a reason why he wasn't getting people out, whether it be physically he was injured, or he just didn't have the stuff that day, or a combination of both. And then you're going to go put him right back out there to try to work through it. And it went from edema and whatever it was, nerve issue last year, which I don't believe. I believe that they held back on the UCL sprain and didn't say it, to a full-blown torn UCL and Tommy John. So I think it's a ridiculous rule. I think if the guy doesn't have it in competition that day and he needs to get stretched out, well, then go down, and when the guy goes, whoever replaced you goes back out, you throw your 15 or so pitches in the bullpen, and if you need to throw another inning, when that guy ends his inning, you sit down, and then when he goes back out, you get up and you throw your pitches in the bullpen, because I just don't believe that there's a reason why the coach comes and gets the ball from you. It's because you don't have it that day, and you're not getting out. So what makes them think and go in and sit down, you're going to – and think about it this way. Let's say there was one out in that inning. So he goes back and he sits down to get 2 outs, not out there pitching. So he's sitting down for those 2 outs, then sitting down for the 3 outs that his team has to get while they're batting. And then he goes back out there and pitches.
Right.
What's the chances he's still warm? There's no chance. So I just think it's a ridiculous rule. And now MLB and the Yankees are paying for it. with their top pitcher who is one of the better guys in all of the games. So it's really a shame, and I think they should rethink that rule. I hear the Cubs and the Brewers both did it in their game yesterday because the guys couldn't get anybody out in the first inning. If you can't get anybody out, it's because you can't get anybody out that day. You're not going to just magically turn into now I can get people out.
Yeah, go to the bullpen, figure it out. Don't come
go
back.
to the bullpen and work down there where it's not a high stress situation. Because if you are leveraged a little bit, or there's something compromised, you're risking, you're pushing yourself above and beyond what you might have that day physically. And sure enough, that's you end up with a blown out elbow.
Yeah, it's too bad for the Yankees. They did have insurance on him,
right.
So they get their money back. But I don't think that's what.
No, I mean they're trying to get back to the World Series and win a World Series, and obviously they've taken a huge hit in the last couple of weeks now with their chances. And there's a lot of American League clubs that are probably feeling a lot better about their chances now.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing, injury wise, we talked about it earlier. Edwin Diaz, right? Now I can't figure this out. I've watched the 3 performances in game action in the Grapefruit League. He has not looked good. He's all over the place. And on Thursday, his velocity was down. Now, I don't really go look into those things crazy, but 92 on his last fastball for Edwin Diaz is not that good.
It's not even his slider velocity.
Right. So it calls for something. Let's look at this.
I mean, I know they're saying no, and I know that Mendoza said that it'll come and all that. How do you know it'll come? But what else is he going to say? I don't even know if I want to answer that question if I'm asked that question as the manager,
right?
Because it's going to come. How do you know it's going to come? You don't know. You don't know. Maybe that's what he is now. Maybe he's dealing with an injury. My thing, and I saw his strikeout numbers. His strikeout numbers are still there, but we can't have him, walking 2 or 3 or 4 guys in between those strikeouts as well. I think it is a little bit concerning that the velocity is down because that's part of what makes him so dominant and be able to get away with spraying pitches is because his fastball and the slider velocity are so high. So I think it is a little bit of concern. I haven't got a chance to see him throw. I know you have. I was thinking about this. If I don't see some mechanical changes in the way that he throws, I think you're going to see the same thing. He has a tendency to get his elbow in close to his body, throw underneath the ball, and that's why he misses high and right, and that's why his slider has a tendency to back up and not actually slide. So if you're not seeing actual mechanical changes, it is a little worrisome as to what's going on with him.
Yeah, I'd rather him just get lit up in a game in spring training and have his velocity. So it's the other way around. So it's cause for a little concern. And no knock on Mendoza, but all of last year, when he's concerned, it means we're concerned because I've seen what after he said that.
Yeah, it's like one of those questions that you're kind of set up for. Are you concerned? No, I'm not concerned. It's going to come back. How would he know that? How would he know it's going to come back?
And maybe we're just blowing this out of proportion, but it's been talked about because it is a big thing. But you have a Minter and a Stanek, and you got some good guys going into Diaz. I just pray, knock on wood, that Diaz can stay healthy, fully removed from his knee injury now, a whole year, 2 years, if you will. Yeah. He's a huge part of this team.
Well, that's kind of like I was telling you off pod that I'm kind of done with predictions because my prediction and your prediction for breakout guy in the bullpen this year or who's going to be better was Diaz. But I remember 101 mile an hour fastballs against the Phillies, not 92 mile an hour fastballs. So that's a huge difference. 9 miles an hour. If you think about 5,280 feet and multiply it by 9 and then say that's how far back behind your fastball is than it was at the end of the year last year. That's a long ways down the road.
And his first appearance in the Grapefruit League, let's say it was a week to 10 days ago, he was hitting 99. So that's
even more of a, maybe he's going through dead arm. Knock wood that he's going through a little bit of a dead arm,
right.
Where that can take some velocity away and you got to battle through it. So obviously hoping for the best, fingers crossed, because you and I both felt, Diaz is going to be better this year. So hopefully there isn't stuff going on behind closed doors where he's in the trainer's room all the day and every day and he's dealing with something going on. And what Mendoza said is believable that it's going to be there and he's going to be fine.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Let's just hope for the best.
Yeah.
So we got through all that. unbelievably, it's already time for the mailbag, Bill.
Outstanding.
We got
Mailbag.
say that again?
Mailbag.
Mailbag. We got some questions to get to. We'll start with Stacy NYC at Hustle Diva 1. And she writes, and it's funny that this question pops up after we say we're done with predictions.
Yeah.
But her question is, which Met do you think will rise up and have an unexpectedly good season? So
I did think about this, and I will give one, but I don't
Okay.
believe in any of my predictions because I don't know, because the games need to be played, and what the hell do I know? I'm going to say Winker, who is having a very good spring training at the Dish right now, is going to have a above average and possibly borderline all-star season as a DH this year.
I like that.
He's back where he wanted to be. He's comfortable. I think he breaks out a little bit.
Yeah, he has a great eye at the plate, so you can't take that away from him. So that helps, your prediction there. I like that one. Unexpectedly good, so I can't really say the Sotos or the Lindors, obviously. So I'm actually going to go with Ryan Stanek. I'm going to go with
I like that too.
That power right-handed pitcher bridge with Minter to get to a hopefully healthy Edwin Diaz. Because he's got a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He is not afraid of any situation. He's got balls. I expect an unexpectedly really good season from Ryan Stanek.
I like that. I think he's found a home. He likes where he's at, and I think that he's going to thrive. I agree.
Thank you for the question, Stacy. We have a question from Dave Brown. He writes, what makes a successful spring training? Is it ending with a winning record, a healthy team, or something about the chemistry that gets built up? That's a great question.
Yeah, I think that obviously record is the least most important thing. Obviously, you don't want to go 1-20 or 1-20. You don't want to not win any games. And obviously, like we said earlier today, that the last week and a half, last week 10 days or so, you want to start paying attention a little bit more, because then the guys are playing the whole games, and you're getting to see the guys that are going to be doing it, and the starting pitchers are getting stretched out a little bit more, and you're using the relief pitchers in their actual roles. I think the biggest thing is the last two. Getting out as healthy as you possibly can, and hopefully the guys becoming the crew, becoming a nice clubhouse bond. They had such good vibes last year, so that to me is the most important thing. Healthy, and then the boys becoming the boys.
Yeah, I'll just say a healthy team right there, because we've seen how many injuries there's been. Health is by far, to me, the most important. And also with the chemistry, I think that just comes naturally over 162 games. Things happen like they did last year. So they'll naturally happen. For me, it's a healthy spring training.
Agreed.
Thanks for the question, Dave. We got Jeff Cohen. He's got a podcast, Baseball and BBQ. Check it out. He's got a non-baseball related question. We both laughed. So
yeah, we did.
Question. He writes, Bill, it's Casey's birthday. It's not. What gift is your gift to him? And Casey, it's Bill's birthday. What is your gift to Bill? I laughed.
I did too. And I should have thought of something funny, but if you just look behind you, you can kind of tell that it's probably would have to do something with some form of memorabilia.
That's fair.
I should have thought of something like shit on a stick or something like that. Something silly. But if it was to be a nice, endearing gift, obviously it would be some form of a signed baseball memorabilia. Obviously, I know Piazza and Alonso and now Soto are close to your heart, and something like that.
Yeah, that's a very good answer, thoughtful. For me, I wanted to go on a kind of funny side and know what you like. So I was debating one of these two. Either you get like a coupon for as much spaghetti and meatballs from your wife.
You know what's for dinner tonight too, right?
There you go, spaghetti and meatballs. Or we get Bill a good maybe a couple of 6-packs of Natty Ice.
Natty Ice, yeah, you know me.
Yeah, so there you go. That's what I would get.
Simple man, baby, simple.
Exactly. Thanks for the question, Jeff. Last question, Bill. It's from JK, and he's got a question for both of us. He writes, for both, who do you think the Mets will regret not signing more? Jose Iglesias or Jose Quintana?
That's a tough question.
It is.
I mean, I've said this numerous times. I feel like off-field / on-field MVP last year was actually Iglesias for what he brought. Now, obviously, Lindor turned his season around and was phenomenal. I'm going to say, but the leadership that was shown on the mound by Quintana was something else too in the big games that he pitched. I'm going to say, just because I have to answer it, I'm going to say, hopefully they don't regret either one.
Okay.
But Iglesias, what he brought is and he actually brought out a little bit of more of Quintana's personality, I felt, with what he brought in the clubhouse. So I'm going to say, simply on camaraderie alone, Iglesias. But I hope they don't regret either one.
Right. I hope they don't regret either one, but it's not funny, that now they lost Nick Madrigal and Jeff McNeil, and Iglesias would be perfect.
My goodness.
But, roster flexibility, as David Stern says. So Iglesias is on the
Guys got $16 billion, man. You cut somebody, you sign somebody else.
Right. I'm going to go, and everything you said about Iglesias is right. On and off the field, great hitter. But Jose Quintana, with the starting pitching that's going down, and we saw what he did at the end of the year and in the playoffs, the Brewers got him literally for $2 million.
Yeah.
So, like peanuts, I would say, and I hope they don't regret any of them, but Jose Quintana, he's for me the guy that it was a no-brainer. We talked about it in prior episodes, and the Brewers got him for $2 million. So
that's a tough question.
Yeah,
that's a tough question. It's a good question.
It's a very good question. So thank you, Justin. Time for quick pitches already.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm always ready to say something silly.
Number one, rank these methods of communicating and explain why. FaceTime, phone calls, or text messages.
I still like phone calls the best. Don't like FaceTime because I still have to see my face on the screen. If I could get rid of my face on the screen, I wouldn't mind FaceTime as much. Texts, I do a lot of texting, but sometimes, obviously, as we all know, it's hard to read the context of the text. Phone calls are still, if I want to get something done right away and they can get the vibe of where I'm coming from, I still think phone call over all of them.
Okay.
If you take away my face off the screen, maybe I could do more FaceTiming.
FaceTime's when you call, the bigger picture is the other person.
But even still, I don't even want to see my face at all.
Okay.
Just let me see. I didn't call you to see my face.
Right.
I didn't FaceTime you to see my face.
Fair enough.
I don't even look in the mirror. I don't want to see my face.
Yeah. Okay. Can't disagree. Number two, what's something that you've done that really intimidated you, but it paid off at the end, whenever that was?
Something that I've done that really intimidated me that paid off at the end. I mean, I'd like to say just baseball in general, but I don't know if it really paid off in the end. But I mean, I have the experiences that not many people get the opportunity to live and to do. So obviously playing in the major leagues is intimidating. You didn't know that, I guess. Maybe some people knew it more than others, I guess. I didn't know it at first. It turned a little bit more intimidating when I was dealing with anxiety issues and that. But I'm glad that I wanted to be a baseball player. You know, I got to do some things and travel the world and travel the country and do things that the majority of people never will get the opportunity to do.
I like that answer. Last one. If you could only eat one condiment for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Hot sauce, I guess. I would say ketchup, but ketchup, I feel like you can't put on as many things as you could put on a nice cayenne hot sauce. You know, I'm a big fan of the original Louisiana hot sauce. So I have about 9 or 10 different hot sauces in my refrigerator right now.
Wow.
I do like ketchup, but like I said, I don't feel you can put ketchup on as many things as you can put hot sauce on.
So hot sauce is the answer.
I believe hot sauce.
Okay, I like it.
What about you, though? I want to know what yours would be.
I would I'm not a fan of spicy, hot sauce kind of thing, but I am a fan of ketchup.
I like ketchup too.
Also ranch
I was
is
gonna
up there.
say ranch. I knew it because you're a ranch on pizza guy. Hidden. You're a
Yep,
hidden ranch on pizza guy.
I am.
I know
Uh,
you are. I knew it.
ranch and chicken on a pizza, pretty good. So
I will say this. But that's different. A chicken bacon ranch pizza is different than the people that put ranch on their regular, tomato and
right,
cheese pie. I
right,
will agree with you. A chicken bacon ranch pie is good. And I know I've said twice on pod how I don't get the pizza ranch thing, but I
right.
meant it more like a cheese slice that I'm dipping my. No, no.
No, I to be clear, I'm not doing that. I'm
So
not
which one are you picking? You only get one.
ketchup.
Ketchup. Okay. Yeah, that would have been my two.
Absolutely. Uh, that wraps it up. We had a lot to unpack. We got 2 weeks or so until opening day. Um, Baseball's in full swing. We got a couple days before the real opening day of 28 teams
Right.
in Tokyo with the Dodgers and the Cubs. That's going to come in less than a week. So baseball's in full swing, and thank goodness, right?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I don't pay enough attention to spring training because it's hard to watch when there's different guys playing every inning and that. I'm ready for some real baseball. Uh, thank goodness it's coming. Looking forward to being able to turn the TV on at night and watch some ball.
Yeah, and to be fair to your point, not every game is on television in spring training, so it's
Yeah,
hard.
it's harder.
That's going to
I've
wrap it
tried. I
up.
sit down and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch
Uh
a
huh.
few. Yeah, okay, all right.
Maybe at the end, maybe with a week to go.
Yep.
You know, so that was a lot to unpack. Baseball is almost in 100% full swing in terms of meaningful games. But any last words for our listeners, Bill?
Nope. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it as always, and we're almost there. We're almost at opening day.
Absolutely. So, for Chris behind the scenes and Bill Pulsifer, my name is Casey Lynn saying so long from the Say Hello podcast.